Joining us now, Dr. Abdul Al-Sayed, a physician, former public health official, and a Democrat running for Michigan's open U.S. Senate seat. Doctor, do you think there's going to be any coming back for the CDC at this point?
Unfortunately, not as we knew it. I just want to set the context for folks here. RFK Jr. is like the guy you never wanted to have to partner with in science class. He thought he knew the answers, and he's ultimately the guy who would light his hair on fire. And now he's lighting all of HHS on fire. And the reality of it is that I remember walking into the CDC for the first time as a newly minted health officer and watching all of the incredible things these lifelong public servants were doing to keep us safe in ways we didn't even know. Appointing him in the first place was a betrayal, and we all kind of knew that this is where this was headed. We need leadership that A, puts science first, and B, puts the public's health above all. This is a national security issue. I mean, we should know because we lived through a pandemic just, 5 years ago? How risky it might be to have a CDC that's been gutted over this, and now this guy wants to play with fire again? It's insane.
Let me ask you, if I can, about how you thread the needle with the messaging, Doctor, around misinformation and disinformation, right? I mean, the success and the rise of somebody like RFK and what he represents is because of the disinformation and misinformation that exists in our country around the issue of public health. And the conspiracy theories that are out there, from everything from vaccines to the pandemic, to public health, to food consumption and the FDA and pharmaceuticals. And you have a lot of people, certainly in states like Michigan as well, where average American voters are concerned about their health, but they don't trust the government, and they think somebody like RFK is out there who's peddling this false information and vaccine hesitancy as being pro-health and watching out for America's health. How do you thread the needle? How do you explain to viewers and to voters about the risks that he and others that are being appointed to these positions pose to the health of everyday Americans while they're also skeptical of government and public health?
Well, I think we're so often focused on what we're against rather than saying what we're for. And too often, those of us who have stood for science, we've had a really hard go of it because we've watched as corporations who we entrust to make things like vaccines and pharmaceuticals that people need and deserve, they have too often written the rules that regulate them. And that's meant that our healthcare is out of reach. I got to be honest with you, during COVID, we're asking people to take a vaccine for a disease that didn't exist a year ago, but then they can't afford insulin, which is medication for a disease they know they have. I think we have to recognize that the trust in public health has to also be trust in the healthcare system. And what that means is that we've got to make it easier to get healthcare in the first place. So I want to be going out there saying, hey, look, in a healthcare system where no matter what you do for a living, if you're working at all, you can go and get healthcare, even if you've been laid off of your job, and you don't have to worry about falling into medical debt. And by the way, when there's a new pandemic, here's a new medication we created that you can take to protect yourself. But when you feel locked out of the healthcare system, like too many people do, then when we come to you with a new medication that's for free for a disease that didn't exist a year ago, you're probably less likely to trust us. And so there's a reason as a public health official, I wrote the book on Medicare for All, because I know that if we're not serious about guaranteeing every single person in this country access to health care, then we're going to continue to lose the battle for hearts and minds when it comes to public health too.
I really think that's a smart answer, and it shows a lot of humility about what happened during COVID and winning back public trust. So I want to ask you right now, what do you think is the most destructive thing happening that RFK has done that you are worried about for long-term public health implications and trust in our public health system?
Yeah, I could say this as a doctor and a scientist, but let me just say this as a father of two daughters, 7 and 2. The most important thing that I can do for them was what I did to get them vaccinated the day that they were eligible for those vaccinations. He's moving not just to disinform the public using the strongest seat in all of public health. He's moving to try and take away access to critical vaccines. Kids die of flu, kids die of COVID, seniors die of flu, and seniors die of COVID. And the work he's doing to both undermine public health recommendations, but also make it impossible potentially to get those vaccines, that's incredibly dangerous. And that's going to have long-term impacts down the line.
All right, Dr. Abdul Sayed, thank you so much. Greatly appreciate having you on and look forward to many more conversations with you.